informed by nothing but the will of the people. All the policies that currently govern us were built in a time where, or put in place in a time where the people in their majority were not the priority. It therefore means we need a strategic overhaul of the systems that are still in place. All the topics that are going to be discussed here today revolve around the systems under which we live our lives. So collectively as leaders, ours should be to critically look into the policies and ask ourselves, what were they built for? Is that purpose still relevant? And if not, let's change them immediately. Thank you so much.
I think in that moment, you know what, I've never done this thing before, so Ongama, you're not going to kill me. Please join us on the stage. We've invited Ongama to make some kind of sense for us as to what is it that we can then do from what you guys are saying. So he's gonna tell us and summarize what is he hearing and how do we then build with that. But he's well capable to do that. I don't have to give him a job description. I think in that moment, let me just also welcome Mr. Let me just to make sure Nicholas, but Nicholas, I just want to make sure I get you say it right. Yes, it's Nicholas Nyati. Sometimes you call people by the wrong surnames because you're under pressure of some kind. Thank you for joining us here from the DA. Now, can we have Mr. Neil Kempfer? I've always wondered, is it Kempfer or Kemper? Kempfer.
But we grew up camping as well.
All right. So we just need you to also answer the same question. Give us the vision. Where are we going? Where do you intend to take us? And how do we get there? What do we need? You have 3 minutes as well.
Thanks, Olwam. Firstly, let me just honor what you guys are doing. I think that anything we're talking about the future, if it does not include young people at the front and center of that conversation, we are missing the boat. The fact that I'm a 51-year-old former youth sitting here and talking about the future is an indictment on our society as a whole. But I'm excited about what I see here is young people stepping up. And I was saying earlier on that a big part of our conversation as leaders in the city is how do we enable space for young people to have their voices heard. 25 years ago, I would sit in World Youth Social and Economics conferences as a student, just at the same age that you are at. And I can tell you the stuff that they told us then about the future was nothing compared to what we are experiencing today. So even with the best intent in the world here, for this city, our vision here has to be driven by you people, by young people. And so a couple of thoughts for AIM is very important. The one is what you were saying now about the fact that we need to get people at the center of this conversation. We are one of the most segregated cities in the country. South Africa is one of the most segregated nations in the world. Our Gini coefficient, the measure of those that have and those that do not have, is so wide that we are world leaders in that. So we need to really go back to fundamentals and get our people to have a little bit more confidence in our ability to invest properly into the future. And I've lived my life on the basis that if you invest in young people, deep and wide within our civil society, you will always reap the fruits of a democracy. We are not reaping harvests now. What we are reaping now is failed harvests because we haven't done fundamentals right. And I think we can tweak a couple of things. That starts on the 1st of November, but that is one of a number of things. AIM's vision for this city is to be a world-class. We all want nice jobs, we want nice cars. These sort of things is what materialistically we would want to see our people grow, because a democracy is nothing if the material conditions of people have not been uplifted. So if your democracy is failing in that, you need to change tack. And we've had now 27 years of this experiment. And we know the objective conditions of our people have been worsened. And every single one of us here has stood up because of those realities. We cannot avoid that. So it's nice to project a vision, but we need to have leaders to do that. Back in the 80s when we were organizing boycotts and all of those sort of things, nobody talked about the vision. We just talked about getting what the risks are, how we as a society can hold each other accountable, but more than anything, an identity that we all can buy. This segregation that we sit with is one of our failures as people. And it's young people that throw off that nonsense about appealing to the old ways of doing things. Young people in the next 10 years won't even know what this conversation is about. So it is important that we hold each other's hands, that we increase public trust, and that whoever we elect into local government holds that as part of your North Star, your direction map for building and investing into the future.
Thank you very much. I thought I should also mention, because I know that you have also ran and have been leading young people in a space. So I don't think the question of age, but I do know that I think you've led years, I remember. So I was happy that you came, because I know that you somebody who also in the space of youth development. So we're happy to have you. Your mama, please give us your thoughts on the leadership of the city. You are in government currently. You are the spokesperson of also the deputy mayor. Give us an understanding, where are we going?
Thank you very much, and good morning to colleagues, and also to everyone in the present. The future of this city is young. As much as our democracy is young, we need to understand that and have it embedded in our hearts and in our heads that it's young. We are going to a space of everything becoming smart, whereby innovation is needed, whereby young people need to be skilled in a direction of new technology advances, as we call. And we are in a situation whereby our young people are at the back foot of that. They're not skilled technologically wise, and so on and so forth. So we cannot compete with other countries which are already in the fifth industrial revolution. So we need to build the 4IR, but the question is, in what revolution are we in? We're still in the second and third, so we're at the back foot. But young people are there to drive that space, so that we catch up with other countries or other spaces in the world. And we are situated right at the coast, whereby this thing can be accelerated, and we understand that. So hence now we need young people at the forefront, young people leading these conversations. So I'm not saying that all people should not be part of it, but give young people a space to lead. And at the same time, what you do is, as old people, you guide. So because you've got experience in leadership and so on and so forth, and this is the link. But young people leading at the forefront of that. As a city right now, they are rolling out what you call smart meter for electricity and water, in order to detect some of the issues that were happening. Like, for instance, tampering with electricity. That smart meter will detect that. So that we do not get these losses as we go, because there's a lot of losses when it comes to electricity, because people are tampering it, people are stealing electricity, and so on and so forth. So the rollout of that smart meters, that means we're going to a space where we're building a smart city. But now the question is, who is at the forefront of that revolution, of that rollout? You know? So it needs to be young people who understands today's technology, who understands that a smartphone is not only for calls and SMSs, But there's a lot that you can do. You can run a business from your smartphone. All people do not have that. So the same thing with these products that are coming in. Secondly, who designs these things? Right? So who manufactures them? Are they in the city? Or we're always importing outside? But don't we have those minds in the city? We have a government in the country whereby we needed doctors, but we have young people who are sitting at home, who are graduates in that. But then what we did, we imported doctors from Cuba to come and help us with coronavirus. We imported engineers to come deal with the water crisis, but we have engineers in the country. So we need to come back and introspect as to what do we want our future to be like. How do we see and view young people? But young people need to be at the core and the forefront of that conversation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mann, you are leading in the province as well as in the region, and largely you are part of giving us the direction as a society. Where are we going? What do we need? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ola, and thank you for the platform. Good morning, everyone in the program. From the onset, Ola, we want to say that we take this debate very seriously. We take the platform very seriously. That's why we arrived here very early. We take these kinds of conversation very seriously because we are not contesting these elections on the 1st of November to prove a point. We are contesting these elections because we are pained by the situation of our people. We are contesting these elections because we think that a victor of the ANC, decisive victor of the ANC, will be able to fast-track the development program that we want to see taking place in the city. When the ANC governs alone, it is solely accountable to the people of the metro. There will not be a back and forth that no, the mayor is the mayor of this party, the MMC is the MMC of this party, and therefore causes instability that we have seen over the past 5 years. So we are very serious about what we want to do. Second is that we want to, as our manifesto says, build better communities together with our people. It's why we've undertaken a process that we have never done and any party in this country has ever done. That the candidate selection in the wards was people-driven and people-centered. For the first time ever, the ANC did not sit in one room, in one hall, and elected a candidate and went back to the people and said, this is your candidate. But the process was open to all registered residents in those specific wards. And with a situation where the people would say to us, no, ANC, we think you are wrong here. Here is a young man we think must lead us in this ward. And all across all of the metro, we have got those products. We have got a balanced candidate list across the board. You have got 17 young people, I'm talking practical now, practically speaking, 17 ANC ward candidates, all of them under 35, is a product of the people. It tells you that the people are speaking directly as to what is it that they want, and we're the only party that has offered that. And that is going to deal with the question of accountability. Second, we're happy that we're here in this Mendy Center, that the ANC in 2010 even resolved that we need to correct the situation in the center. There are many centers here. Allen Region is dilapidating. There are many centers across the metro where the city is not responding to. And we're the only party that has been serious about it because we know we were born and we grew up here. There is a famous saying, the reason for that is because the city historically has been a city of activities. You have got many young organized people here that are doing things day and night. We need to move closer into those sectors. We need to undertake deliberate programs to assist those sectors. So that is our That is our vision for the city. But the last point is the issue of the pledge that we've made to our people. My time is up. Okay.
You still have an opportunity to raise some of the issues. Mr. Casca Johnson from Good. Please tell us, we understand, okay, let me not provide historic analysis that might be wrong for me, but to just give us a vision where we are going and what you guys are doing, and you have 3 minutes to.
Is it working? Okay. Molweni, and thanks, Olwam.
Know that your voice needs the microphone.
I know. Molweni. I think we all have a common vision here when it comes to our city. We all want a world-class city. And I think we might be on our way there. We have beautiful structures and systems in place that can take us to our to our vision, which is a world-class city. Sadly, those systems and those vehicles that can take us there are riddled, are used as political battlefields. We have development structures here that are meant to be apolitical. Those development structures are meant to assist us into being a world-class city. But you'll find out, you'll find that we use the very same structures and systems, selfishly so. As good as the good party. Our vision as the good party is to have a people-centered development. We believe that if we deliver to our people, if we are intentional about the development of our people, that may inspire our people to do what we call a people-driven development, and not relying on us as the government, but to lead their own government. Their own development. I think we have all diagnosed what the problems and the challenges are in our communities, but we do not have the will and the political will to actually solve those problems and challenges that we have. We all know the issue of street lights, traffic lights, crime, unemployment, and as the people, we relatively know what needs to be done, but we are not doing that. Our people are defeated. Our people are consciously unconscious because they've been neglected for such a long time. Now they think that they are not good enough to do anything about their current situation. Hence, they are defeated. Just the other day, we have started a neighborhood watch in our community. It was driven because my neighbor was murdered right at the front of his door. And then as young people, I mobilized my people, mobilized young people to actually start a neighborhood watch. I slept at 3 this morning to make sure that to keep our streets safe. Onuna, who is here, knows exactly what we are doing in our community. So those are some of the things that we need as the people. We need to drive our own development, but we need to be inspired in order for us to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Nicholas, you are in government. We are going somewhere, but where are we going? And who is the kind of leadership? What are these attributes that we need to go to where we need to get to?
Before I start, can you please take 5 seconds from my time just to honor his neighbor and other people that we've lost to crime in this country? As the Democratic Alliance, our vision is to build one city with one future. What I mean by that is that Umdana, governor of Senegal, who is a white man, must be able to get the same opportunities as Umdana and Nicholas, who is a black man. What do you mean when you say you want to build one future with one vision in the context of local government? Is that a person who stays at Summerstrand must feel safe. Must be able to feel safe. Because of Amapara. Now, how you build that one city with one future is through strategic objectives. It starts with attracting investors and investing in your city. How do you do that? You do that by building a sustainable energy source. Getting off the grid from ESCOM, because we all know how ESCOM has been treating us, still failed. Secondly, you ensure that there is proper water supply. That is going to attract investors. You do this governing with pillars. These pillars, it's an opportunity city, meaning that if Nishala was a care, I must be able to get a job was a care, because the city has produced an environment that is conducive enough to support the township economy. We are speaking about a forward-thinking city. A forward-thinking city, we don't plan a Mendy Art Center in 2010 and wait for another government in 2021 to be able to open it. We resolve now, we produce it now. And that's what it means when we say forward-thinking city. We need a government that gets things done. Because I have 3 minutes, I won't mention the other pillars, but I want to answer your question. What type of leadership do we need? Sitting up in leadership, what we are reading about the Eastern Cape and the narrative of the Eastern Cape that all politicians are corrupt is a false vision. We all know the people who are stealing, and we must be able to reject them as society. Local government has three pillars that hold it together. It's the political leadership, it's the administration, and most importantly, it's the people. So I urge each and every person out there to be able to hold a government accountable by holding the politicians accountable. If Ngababana is failing, reject him at the ballot box. He must not come here and blackmail you about quoting Helen Suzman. If Bongani Mani is failing you, reject him. He must not come here and quote Nelson Mandela, because those people have passed away. It's the people who are here. You see a criminal, you vote them out. You get? So we need to have our people, perhaps Upulongama can touch on this, where people understand the power that they have, because they elect us in these positions of power. You get? So they must be able to know that they have such a great power that they can remove us from these positions of power. And most importantly, this is a sad story, my brother. It's very bad. In Woma, we're reading in newspapers now that people are getting killed. How do we solve that at a local government perspective? We must push united. I'm going to challenge the ANC, I'm going to challenge AIM, I'm going to challenge CODE, that we decentralize the police system, because Italy has failed us. Satellite township is so value. Let's decentralize the police station and invest more on metro police. I'm challenging you now to say we support you, Nicholas, but he has failed. We must protect our people.
Thank you. At least that gets the pressure out of the way. We get the concerns about infrastructure, about service delivery, the lights, about the roads. We get that. We get the facilities that have been left unattended and have been broken down. We get all of that. But because if we see that we are going to there, we'll probably be able to come together, because at least we share that common vision. So now, maybe let me again, before this have another round, just to talk about the effect of crime and the question that we are dealing with the Somalians and the taxi industry. Not only confine it to that, confine it to the coexistence or the relations however you define them, whether it should be coexistence or whether however you define it, how do we not act as if we don't have a multi-national city? What can we do? There are fires there. What is your take? Another set of round, but for 2 minutes this time, on the issue of coexisting or the multinational character of the city. Mr. Zuman.
Thank you once again, Ola. I want us to speak of the facts as they are. Calling it a situation with the Somalians and the taxi drivers is incorrect. It gives the impression of a xenophobic attack. The activity that happened in Coston started because a South African Muslim drove into a taxi. The taxi driver reacted, and because the South African Muslim is an influential leader within their community, that community stood up in his defense. The real problem in Coston is not what happened the other day. The real problem there is the failure of the municipality to enforce the bylaws. Walk into any building there and ask them for their business license. Walk into any building and ask them for their fire safety license, certification rather. Walk into any building and ask them for their training license, test level certificate that can carry on. You will probably not find a single one. And the reason for that is because our municipal officials and our politicians are benefiting from that illegal activity that's happening there. That is why the precinct in its entirety is congested. The taxi drivers claim their space because of the taxi rate there. They need to work there. The shop owners claim that space because their shops are there. And sooner or later, if you have two unregulated industries working so closely in a space that is too dense, you will eventually have an eruption. So that thing is a ticking time bomb. It's a failure. On firstly, the Black Caucus were a chance to rectify it over the term that they were in power. And now the DA-led coalition has also failed because they've done nothing about it. So to blame Bekitele, who only came here after it happened, is incorrect. As a matter of fact, if you are serious about law enforcement, you have at your disposal the Metro Police. They are now acting as glorified traffic cops because they are incapacitated by the very same DA government. You have the municipal security officers. They are glorified car guards. They open gates for the likes of Ngabapanga and the like. So I'm saying capacitate them and solve the issue there in cost. Thank you.
The issue of crime is a sore pain to all of us as residents and citizens of this metro. It is not only a government problem, but it's a societal problem. And it needs to be done from that point. We as the people, I don't know when do we stop and take back our power and realize that we actually are the government. When the people stand up and say we are going to safeguard our communities, when people stand up and say we're going to take back our power, when people stand up and say we're going to build our society, it starts with them. Because we are in government elected by the people, for the people. When we neglect that, what do the people need to do? They need to change those they've hired. And also, the people need to drive the safety aspect of governance. If our neighborhood works, our community policing forums do not work, we need to come together in a space and say, this thing is not working, what do we need? The issue of crime also has too many drivers. The issue of joblessness, unemployment, it is a driver of crime. So we need to look at the root cause of crime and not only deal with what comes out, the fruits of it, at the end of the day. Because crime emanates from somewhere. But now we are going to come into these forums as young people and be pointing fingers instead of coming to solutions. It's not going to help us. And this forum helps us as young people from different political parties to become apolitical and come with a solution which will be one and which is going to take us forward. And that is, we need to come back to the table and say, the people of the city need to stand up. We need a city whereby we are not government dependent. You know, the state of dependence in this country is something else. It is heartbreaking because we're dependent on for everything, for opportunities for us to stand up. What do we talk about big for us? But then at the end of the day, we're not doing that. We're waiting for government to give us crumbs. But we have the power to do that. Burkina Faso did it. They did it without having aid from outside. What is stopping us from doing that? Okay. We can safeguard our city and we can do it ourselves, with or without the political leadership.
Okay, I must note that you didn't comment on the issue of crime that is actually happening there, but your time is up. But Mr. Mani?
Sure, thanks once again. Quick one. One is compared to agree with Zumana. Characterizes accurately the same way that we've characterized as the ANC, the problem in costing. Secondly, it's hypocritical and is wrong and must be condemned to speak as if crime happens everywhere else in the city or the debt is everywhere in the city. There are parts in the city where it's extremely clean, it's extremely safe to walk at night. There's some standing opulent areas where the DA has got an interest in is safe and secure. It is us in the location who are dying every day. It is us in the location who walk past the death in the city. So they really don't have an interest. The Metro Police, Zumana, puts it correctly. It is the facilities in the location where we're staying, where our people, and by our people I mean black. I mean black. Where our people are staying, where our people fall victim. But the sitting government now of the DA does not care about that particular constituency because it does not affect their voter base. So I mentioned here the dilapidated state of Alan Hall in Utinik. The building is being destroyed. There is no response from the city. There is no response. The Metro Police has not done anything. It was launched by Untitled Chapter of the DA. They have not arrested anybody for serious crimes. I hear the focus and everything else, but our people do not have capacity to, and we must not encourage mob justice, because once we encourage those kinds of things, they will lead to lawlessness and the anarchy that we saw at Costin a few days ago. So the city has got to take responsibility and not abdicate some of the responsibility that they have. But one fully agrees with what Zumana has mentioned. Thanks, Olam.
Mr. Kemper, that is your constituency and you are standing there as a councillor candidate.
Thank you, Omar. Thanks. I just want to maybe just reference a couple of things that in September 2020, an international report called A City Under Siege ties the gang violence to criminal governance problems within government, within this local government. And it goes back for a number of years. For the last 10 years, I've been working in Helensvale with MBDA, looking at safety and peace through urban upgrade, investments through the city and German cooperation. What we're learning there is that these patterns repeat itself because we lack the leadership to break the pattern. That is one of our single biggest problems. It's not necessarily only the people's issues. Corsten Shoreville, the MBDA in 2015 did a master plan for the whole Shoreville-Corsten area, a 3.5 to 4 billion rands upgrade that looks at housing, roads, public infrastructure. All of those things since 2015, and the municipality and national government has not put the money in it. So 6 years later, this stuff happens. I've got an aunt in Jackson Street. She's 82, 83 years old. She walks to Livingston Hospital. And when I ask her, what will make a difference here? She said, Neil, just clean the sidewalks so that I can walk peacefully to the hospital. That's the only measure of what she wants. She does not feel she wants to walk in a street where she is a leopard or a springbok waiting to be attacked because somebody throws out stuff on you. So we have got to look at these things at a very micro level. The impact on our residents is far-reaching. I don't care much about the interest of business because business is exploiting the leadership failure, the lack of political response, and the lack of civil society cohesion around this thing. That's why when we talk about the vision, we have got to start with this idea that as a city, we've got to value everyone and have a conversation about what takes us forward rather than what keeps us stuck in these low trust, high risk environments.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I fully agree with those Mani. And we need to capacitate our metropolis. We need to capacitate our own community policy forums in order for us to deal with these issues. What is happening in Costin, is driven by something else. Lack of infrastructure, so on and so forth. Now, at times, as the people or as government, we want to address symptoms and ignore the roots. We need to find first what drives crime in our communities. Unemployment, poverty, lack of infrastructure, lack of resources, and lack of activities. For instance, we know the houses that sell drugs in our communities, and at times, it's we battle to go and close those houses because we know that those people are unemployed. Just the other day, when this happened, when we started with this neighborhood watch in our community, we went to the house. When we got there, we were told that the person who's selling drugs there is gone. They heard that we were coming, they packed their bags and left. Now that's an example of the community taking ownership, of their own issues. They heard that we were coming. The next day they were gone. But again, we were battling amongst ourselves when we were having this conversation that we need to close that house. But the question was that if we close that house, what's going to happen to those people? How are they going to make a living? Those people are unemployed. What's going to happen to them? How are they going to eat? So we need to find those root causes, those drivers, and address them, so that we have a different narrative. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I think I must start by saying that as the government, we condemn what happened in Costa. It must never happen again in this country. Anyone, whether you're a Somalian, whether you're a taxi driver, whether you're a South African Muslim, if you broke the law in Costin, they must go to prison and face the full wrath of the law. But what we must not do as leaders is to be economical with the truth. The problem that you see in Costin is a reflection of what is happening across the country. But because I don't want to speak about the country, I'll speak about Nelson Mandela Bay. If you go to Parliament Street in Central, it's owned by Nigerians. If you go to Costins, it's Ethiopians and Somalians. Ne? Most of those people enter through the borders. Because Umama Patashati will spend billions building a washing line and called it a fence for our border. The Minister of Home Affairs is failing us. That's how they enter the country. The Minister of Police, the Minister of the Defense is failing us. Okay, sure, now they are here. How do we solve it at a local government level? Number one, we introduce a metropolis. Ubongani attests to this, that when the DA took over, we were the first ones to introduce a metropolis. Not just to cater for Summer Street. We took the first metropolis office and Utata would confirm, we put it in the northern areas because that's a crime hotspot. Those are our people because as the DA we represent everyone, not just black. We represent black, we represent color, we represent white, and unashamedly so. We are a true part of a non-racial society, one city with one future. After doing that, we introduced a shop spotter because we want to be able to locate when someone shoots a gun, and that's how you fight crime within the context of the city. So to say that national government has not failed us would be to lie. It would be to lie. They must close our borders. The Minister of Police must do their job. If you can't do it, I said to you, decentralize the system, give us the money that you're going to spend on police, then we can be able to equip the Metro Police. Then we can be able to equip the Metro Police. Metro Police is currently there to just enforce municipal bylaws. By the way, when they came into place, they destroyed a problem buildings committee. We have to start afresh to introduce a problem building bylaw. Nigeria, Ethiopia are hijacking buildings. They took over, boom, destroyed that committee and fired people. So you ask a question, why did they do that? What are they really benefiting? But okay, it's fine.
Okay. Are we not concerned, Ongama, that we have people that we are avoiding to deal with, who are the guests in the city, in the country, but their presence cannot be avoided, not be overlooked, because by virtue of coming from another city, another country, into another country, your own purpose is to develop yourself. There are reasons, push factors and pull factors. You will fight tooth and nail to have a better life. Are we not avoiding a very strong presence of a group of people that has a potential to create, similar issues as what has happened in Costin? I don't want to characterize it myself, but I want us to be able to raise it, because it sounds wrong that someone can bump into you and then you want to burn 8 taxis and 3 shops. Those are livelihoods. But also on our vision, according to what you've heard, where are we going? What are your thoughts?
Good morning, colleagues. Such a lovely session to have. Congratulations to Fruits of Democracy for organizing this.
Yes, you have 4 minutes. Just
yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's been heartwarming to sit here, and I think that the way Mr. Mani and to embrace actually is collective. As I listened to different people speaking, one thing is very clear. The people of this city are blessing the city by not being sold to giving the city to any one political party. Because the great ideas that are coming up here are really exciting. My heart is warm. So, you want me to answer that question, or you want to talk about the emerging vision? Okay. Well, since you tempted me, when I grew up, I grew up in the former Siskai. In the former Siskai, if any of you grew up in those rural areas, they will tell you your maths teacher, your science teacher came from Ghana. Ghanaians who came to equip us in those areas. Go to townships now, find out who is running a business that supplies welding, crafts, among other things. Go to Wells Estate. You will see who's supplying that and who's buying it. Go to North End in PE and see who's providing an alternative in the vehicle servicing sector. Auto electricians, mechanical engineers, among other things, among other skills. Your answer will be there. So we must get rid of this South African exceptionalism, which creates the impression that we don't need others. And in fact, we are so racist in our approach that we recognize an investor as white from Europe, from North America. When in fact these fellow Africans are coming here and they are investors. They are investing in a whole range of businesses that are exciting and are creating jobs. Quickly, so please don't be offended if my summary of what you've said is not quite what you said, but I love what has come out. The first one, and I initially I was going to attribute where each of the statements came from, but I think that for the sake of time, let me not, and also for the sake of perhaps creating something around for you which will be bought by everybody, it's important to emphasize that it came from the collective. One, so I took the emerging statements. I mean, work will need to be done to consolidate it. One, a caring city. That was really justified. A prospering city where all have equal share in the wealth. A smart city and connected city where innovation is allowed to thrive. A self-sufficient city with all the skills necessary for its functioning. A city in which all take collective responsibility for changing their lives. A developing world-class city that works for all, free from discrimination. A city that manages its resources well and is able to grow. So, from what people were saying, there were a whole lot of other things that they said. But this, to me, was what I could summarize each of the contributions, building towards a particular vision. Now, what I've done for you is to capture all the presentations that were made, what people were saying. A disadvantage I had, quickly as I'm wrapping, a disadvantage I had coming from a rural area going into roads was that the English that was spoken was not one that I could understand if I sat in the back. So I sat in front and I needed to learn the skill of quickly getting as much of what a person is saying while still listening to the next point that they're making. So I'm happy to bless you with that skill that was built from disadvantage and give you everything that the leaders have said. It will be quicker than the recording.
Thank you, Mr. Lisa, I will take that. And Mr. Banazi, I see that I think it's actually growing towards your direction as well to get where what we are thinking. This case of who is in the city is exhibited by what has occurred in Costin. Zimbabweans, Nigerians, and all of those people. I do want, when you make your closing remarks, include that cosmopolitan nature of the city, because when we lead most of the time, we're only leading the people that elected us, but when we get to a position, we actually lead everyone who's in the city. And I feel that we've almost overlooked, we are neglecting the power that comes from whoever is in the city. But this is also a free run to actually say your piece, what you are thinking, but mention what the organization that you are leading or you are part of is doing for women development, women leadership, women empowerment. But it's a free run for you to be able to say the piece that you want to have. And then we'll do the round again from Mr. Zumani, and then Ongama will do the conclusions before I take over again. But just the female question in leadership, in development, when it comes to defenders of the people or your own organization, and what do you want to say to the voters? This is still 3 minutes each.
Thank you once again, Mama. The Defenders of the People has enshrined in its very existence the objective of putting ahead young people and putting ahead women. If the green on our logo represents the land, there's a woman in the center of it working the land. Having not grown up in the rural areas, so I can attest to the fact that if wealth and prosperity were a direct consequence of a person's hard work, then the rural woman would be the richest and most prosperous person in the world. It is for this reason, and amongst others, that we have put women at the center of our leadership. Our deputy secretary in the region is Ma'am Florence Admans, who is also second in our PR list, which is something untraditional, because traditionally you would have your deputy chairperson second on your list. This is how far we have taken, or how seriously we have taken our self-set mandate to put women ahead. The program of Defend a Girl Child that I mentioned earlier, where we delivered sanitary towels to schools where girls from underprivileged households come, and sometimes they would not have the opportunity to go to school for a week on end simply because they are female. Proves, or was intended to prove to the community, that the DOP is serious about putting women ahead. So, in going forward into this local government election, my only plea to the community of West Mandela Bay is to identify firstly for yourself what it means to achieve change. Because it's very easy to use these words of vote for change as a slogan, but each of us has a responsibility to identify for themselves what change means. I can tell you now that change for me means having each and every person in this city have an opportunity for a job or opening their own business. But change for you is what you internalize for yourself. Thereafter, identify the leaders who have demonstrated the capacity and the way to deliver that change. That is what the DOP has done over the past 8 months. Then the easy part becomes putting your eggs next to their name. But it does not end there. It is our responsibility as citizens of the Nelson Mandela Bay to keep our leaders accountable. I like very much Mr. Neil Kamfa when you said the old lady just wants the streets to be cleaned. The DOP has been cleaning the streets for the past 10 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Then we are thinking wrong. Women have been leaders. Women have been taking up that space. We have been suppressing them when it comes to these, what we call positions of power, because they've been leading. Even the greatest men who have lived and led in this country, they've been pushed by women who's been leading behind them. Without that, hence the youth input has, in these elections, has more women in their list more than any other time it has been, because we've realized that it is important to have that women in order for them to continue to fight the struggle against women and to fight for women in order for them to be seen and to be recognized in our society. Gender-based violence, it can never be a conversation that comes and be discussed by men alone, because we do not feel that we are not in their shoes. So it's important that they lead that struggle, and we support that struggle. We listen to what they want and how they want it, and we follow it. So when we're saying as a UDM we're putting people first, that's what we mean. We're putting people first as a collective, we're putting people first as in their own categories and everything. The issue of the LGBTIQ, whereby there's corrective. It happens with LGBTI people who are women, lesbians. They are being corrected to say no. So raping you, it makes it okay. Then they're being killed and so on. We need them to come to the fore, and not just because they're a minority group, we push them aside, and that's what we're doing in the media. So we need women at the forefront of change. And this country, I tell you, the future of this country is women. The future of this country is not just men, but it is women. And we're looking forward to having women president coming in the next national elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mani?
It's going to be very interesting.
Conversation we have with him.
Is it? Okay. Good luck, eh? We are going to need it. Quickly, we are proud as the incident, as I said earlier. Young people, out of the 60 wards, 17 are under 35. The ANC, for the longest of time, is the only party which has got a clear 50-50 policy in terms of women representation. Currently, in the PR list of the ANC, 46 out of the 60 is women. I'm saying we're not just talking. From number 1 up to number 10, there is about 8 women leading, and it's mixed between young and older women. So as to create a correct balance between experience, innovation, as well as capacity within that. But we are really, and especially as young people in the ANC who are going to council, we are really serious about stimulating the sectors that keep the city going. I've mentioned the art sector, I've mentioned the sport, I've mentioned the young people in business. Those are the people that are going to help the city to move forward. So we are very serious. That's why we're very concerned about the state of the facilities and the non-response from the government in office now in resolving the situation that we find ourselves in the city. The debt, the non-working of robots, the state of the stadiums, especially in the townships. I've mentioned here a number of halls. In Motherwell, the halls, there's no longer a place to convene meetings. In Udnik, Allen Ridge, an old hall that has been used for many, many years to express talents and for our people to convene their meetings is dilapidating. There's no response from the city. So we are very worried. Lastly, we are the only party that has come up and said, when a leader does wrong, in our constitution we enforce the step aside rule. Because we want our leaders to be accountable. But we must move beyond just elected leaders. Because corruption does not only take place with those that we vote for into office. Even those that are in managerial and in senior positions in the municipality are involved in corruption. And we must invite these other parties to help us to look into that situation in the institution. Lastly, the youth unit that the young people of the metro defined many, many years ago has got to be implemented so that the youth program and youth development is centralized and coordinated in one office by young people themselves. Thanks.
Mr. Kemfer.
Sumani, thank you for touching on the issue of change and the personal process that it involves. I think that, you know, our name is very deliberate. Abantu Integrity Movement, the People's Integrity Movement. And a great big part of that identity is bringing integrity back. People that own integrity, values of honesty and hard work is exemplified by the women in our communities, as everybody has said. That's why in our 10-point plan, a very key part of that engagement is around making sure that women and youth, as I said, is at the center of this. But we can't just fill positions to make a minimum requirement so that it's acceptable for the politics of the day. It has to be systemic. We have to look at every aspect of our governing life, our civil society life, to make sure that in those spaces, transformation actually happens. I'm a first-time candidate. I never sought public office or party political interest. So for me, being in the front line of this thing is a very transformative process. I'm starting to learn the language of politics. I'm starting to avoid attacking comrades on issues that are opportunistic. A big part of this conversation that we have around gender, around equity and equality, has got to be our raising of the arguments beyond party political snipes at each other. I think mature democracy, we are still maturing, and that's why it's okay for us to be robust about these things. But we have to have outcomes that are better than where we've started from. And I think that for me is what change represents. If that street can be cleaned for the lady to walk safely to hospital, that's an indicator. If women feel safer walking from church to home, that's an indicator. And we can blame the government all we want to, but if as civil society, as residents, we don't own that conversation, then all of us are complicit in the deceit around this concept of a safe and secure, in comfort South African democracy. We are not safe, we are not secure if we don't enforce civil society and people at the center of that. And I think that we all, young people, older folk, we owe it to the next generation to raise the level of the debate rather than just the heat involved. Let's shine light and less heat. And let's work with the plans that we have. Let's focus on implementation. Let's advance people that are excellent at what they are doing, because they do not seek adoration by what titles they have, what positions they have. They seek excellence in service. And if we can get back to Bartolomeo, if we can find our way back to the things that, you guys, as government, the ANC drove these processes. We've got to believe in the unity of the South African concept. And I think we've lost our way in that regard. I think part of this conversation must be taken at another level. And whether I'm in council, whether you are there, if that is the one outcome that you guys can engineer, that will be a win for the people on the ground.
All right. I think, in fact, I know that we are the only political party that is led by Umama here. Umama Patricia Tillil, who is our national president, and very allergic to corruption. So, we also, if you can check our candidates list here in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality, you will see that mostly we have women. So we are very intentional about women taking space, not because we want to be politically correct, but we know that women are capable. I think we all said that we are from the background whereby we've learned leadership skills from a very strong woman. So, coming to what needs to be done, I think we all know what needs to be done. We all know what are the challenges in our communities. Then the question that we need to ask ourselves that what is the barrier to the ideals that we have for our communities? Who is standing in our way? What do we need as the people? Do we have ownership of our own communities? Do we have ownership of our town? If not, what do we need in order for us to regain the ownership of our own spaces? Part of that is ethical and good leadership. I also agree with Mr. Kemba that as leaders here, we need to find each other beyond political lines, because that on its own is a barrier to the development of our own people. We need not here to actually fight with each other, because we are here because people have entrusted us with their own with their development, not only for our political selfishness, but for the development of our people. So we need to find each other there, beyond those lines, beyond party political lines, because we have people to lead. Thank you.
Look, our vision is very simple. When I started, I spoke about building one city with one future. And when you speak about building one city with one future, you automatically speak about women. That Olwam Nongqong must be able to compete at the same level, because their government, local government, has equipped both of them to be able to compete equally. Lo Asimjongi as a female or Lo Asimjongi as a male, but we look at them as individuals who can compete against each other. How do you do that? You do that by building an efficient government. Efficient government, we've proven it throughout the years. We were removed in power in 2018, and I'm going to mention this, not because I'm bashing them, but because it's a reality that affects all of us. We were removed in 2018. When we were removed, we had suspended 5 officials that were accused of corruption. One of them is Umap. When they came back, they brought back this person. Now, are you telling me, are you going to build a city with an individual that has been investigated by the Hawks and has been found to be corrupt? You bring that person back. 1.6 billion was withheld by National Treasury because a member of an organization that I will not name refused to call a council meeting to elect an executive mayor. Now, how are you going to build a city that is safe for our children and women? How are you going to build a city that supports businesses by young people? It would be unjust of me to not mention those things. And this notion that for us to work together, we must, I must not say when the ANC is failing, is a fallacy. Because I know the history of the ANC, and most of us come from there, and that's why I always say, you guys are failing us, because I believe they can do better. You get? So, when we want to depoliticize politics, come to me and say, Nicholas, Ungaba is messing up here. And that's how we grow as government. And also, when we speak about depoliticizing politics, support ideas and notions that are progressive for our people. The time for talk shops is over. We need action. So, my brother, I support your neighborhood watch, and as a result, government will be donating beeps and torches for that neighborhood watch. I'll also invite the mayor to
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be getting few comments from the floor, but we have now a provincial leader of NYDA in our midst. We won't let him not to say anything. We have someone who's leading the marine economy conversation in our midst. So we want them also to actually add a word or two. But are you inspired by what you just heard? Do you feel like we're going somewhere? Do we feel that we can go to any other person who says they are a leader, who's sitting here, and the ones that is represented that might not be here, and actually address them on the issues that pertains to our own development? Can women go to these people or these organizations and say, I have been victimized? I have been victimized, I fear walking at night, and do you think these people will be able to actually give confidence to that particular woman? If students come and say that we are not safe to go to the library, we are not safe to go to this place and that place, do we feel these people will be the people that we run to? If my lights are not working, if I'm hungry, if healthcare is not helping me, if I have to die before I can actually live, if I have to sacrifice so much of myself, if I have to give everything before I can just, when I'm saying this, I'm thinking of people who have to sell a little bit of themselves now because they don't have food on the table. Do you think these are the people we can run to? Are these the parties that we can run to? Any questions from the floor? Anything that you want to say? You have just like 30 seconds. I see the hand is, the guy is edgy there. You can come and take the mic. I see another hand. Let's take those 3, 4 hands in that order. Yes, got a mic that you can get. Do you repeat, gentlemen?
Thank you very much, Speaker. Firstly, let me introduce myself.
You have less than a minute.
Yes, okay. I've got few questions. Since our party and our mayor clarify a lot of things, we are not in power yet. But I'm having few questions to the other parties that are in power and in the government. One, I want to pose these few questions to you. I need a clarity. What kind of skills you would provide to youth and unemployment, and also what your parties are saying about people that are in disabilities.
People
with disabilities that are being raised. Also, youth and middle age, less than 60 years. Also, how you can reduce crime to our poor communities. People that are living in informal settlement, what plan do we have for them? The metro is dirty. Schools are no longer operating. In words, how can we protect them from vandalizing? Sport and recreation, what are you saying? Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zolani Matuan. I'm from New Brighton Football Academy. I'm the 2015 previous winner from Office of Democracy for Sports for Excellence in Sports. My point will be direct regarding e-sport. I think I'll be honest with you guys, you've really failed us pertaining e-sports fields in New Brighton. We've just established now a netball team. We can't use them, or they can't play their home games in New Brighton because we don't have netball courts in New Brighton. And we've been saying and crying to you, but up until today, nothing has been done. We've got volunteers. I'm the head of those volunteers that are working at Chevron Stadium. If you could go there to Chevron Stadium, there are no gates, nothing, the wall is...
We need to build a safe city and a clean city. How do you build a safe city? You decentralize the police service, which as a local government you don't have control over. Decentralize them, then you can see Ungababanga is failing us because to me Metro Police EPA. Currently we only have 116 police officers. How are they going to cover 60 wards? Okay? In terms of the vehicles, we had to come in and see if I get a contract engine because there was no contract for even vehicles for those Metro Police. Secondly, we need to build a cleaner city. Clean city is not only a responsibility of government. It doesn't make sense so as citizens, we also need to be at the forefront of building that clean city. As we can respond to them outside. My brother was Soka, my number is 07, okay, I'll give it to you. Then you can speak to me. Residents, vote for councillors that are going to represent you. If Umnigindo Alayenzi vote them out far so that that person can represent you.
I just wanted to touch base on the cost and violence thing. I think the fact that we are a violent society is deeply ingrained in not the way in which we express ourselves, but in the way in which we handle conflict. I think apartheid, the legacy of how we deal with issues is very far-reaching, and the state is not investing deep enough, as I've always said, in building civil society that handles most of this. The state needs residents to be part of the solution rather than the state bringing the solution. And that's why I find it very irritating when party political people, and sorry, I'm just going to be, as you say, I'm just going to be clear about this. When you are a public official, you represent the citizens of that city. You may be there at the behest of your party, but your obligation is the residents. And so when I see people at public functions funded by the ratepayers, it's an insult to the ratepayers that people put party political paraphernalia and claim the easy victories, that the administration representing our residents should actually be implementing. So for me, that thing is a thing. If I got into council, I would certainly push for redlining of behavior between party political interests and what goes on in our administration. That's the one thing. The second thing on Corsten Shorter, 10 years ago, I had translated conversation and dialogue with about 40 of the Somali traders in Corsten. Fascinating insights over 4 hours between both women on the one side and the men on the other side. And the insights from that tell me back then that the risk that we're seeing here is very real. We warned against this will happen, and I'm certain my wife lost an uncle that was killed by one of the illegal guys, and we have no recourse to the justice. So when we said in the 80s that justice delayed is